Hello, thank you everyone for joining the February 8th VOLTHA TST call. So today we're going to have a presentation from Telefonica on the Celestica adapter for GPON. And I'm going to go ahead and remind everyone at this point that we are recording the session so we can post it later to the VOLTHA playlist. And then I will hand over the presentation to Telefonica. So thank you.
So this is Daniel. Thank you all. Thank you, Julie. Okay. First thing I'd like to say about this session presentation is I'd like to apologize myself for the abrupt contribution we did by the end of last year when we published directly the code that we were working on during the year, just enabling the micro semi OLT in our testbed. So that's part of the reason of proceeding that way. During last year, we have been working very intensively in getting a testbed operative with a full OLT and a set of ONTs in order to be able to provide or to build a trial that we are going to launch, or we have already launched by the end of this year, and we hopefully will have the first client or customer connected by next week. So we really needed to have a full set of hardware and software operative in order to make this trial happen. And well, one of the key pieces of this infrastructure was the OLT itself, for us to plug the fibers from customers' premises. Okay, so
hey Daniel, can you? I know you guys have a few members in the conference room. Would that be okay if you introduce yourself a little bit and what's your role in Telefonica?
Excuse me, could you repeat? Introduce yourself. Sorry, I didn't need it. Well, this is Daniel, and I'm part of the Telefonica team, which is focused on customer centric network. And well, I've been working in the last year on the building the software, the SDM part of the trial that we are preparing. So if I don't know how you...
Yeah, this is part of the... I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah. My name is David Artuñeda. I'm leading the online network project in Telefonica. This is part of the activities that we've been doing in Telefonica in the last 1 year and a half or so. We have developed, have created our own core pod deployed in one central office here in Madrid, including one of the Celestica Ruby OLTs. And we've been working hard, especially Daniel, in setting up the infrastructure and integrating the infrastructure with the VOLTHA components so that we can launch a trial here in Spain. The trial has been announced a few weeks ago. We are in the process of acquiring customers. We have a selected list of people that applied for the trial, and we are completing the registration of the users during these days, and will be up and running, as Daniel mentioned, probably next week.
Great.
Here with us is also Alfonso Arella, that has been deeply involved in all the VOLTHA conversations and building the infrastructure, and Maria Garcia Osma, which is the CTO of the team.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay, so as we were mentioned, we have to say that the contribution that we made is focused on make the full set working. So probably once we send the contribution, please, we would appreciate any comment or support in order to make it a fully enabled feature adapter, and we cover all the requirements for you to approve it. Okay, so for sure this adapter we did not build it from scratch. We took the first contribution from Ali, and I think it was based on VOLTHA 1.0. We had just put there the specific commit. We started working on it. Okay. Last week we also moved to the VOLTHA 1.2 version. So the code that we are using right now is compatible with VOLTHA 1.2. At least we are not getting problems when we run it. Okay. So what we have essentially did from the code that we got from Ali, we have focused in the OLT part. We have focused in completing the OLT activation sequence using the PASCOM protocol from Microsemi. We have also worked in having multiple OLTs activated in parallel. So we have had in our lab two different OLTs simultaneously controlled by VOLTHA. Additionally, we have worked also in the ONU integration. So in order to make that happen, we completed the proxy capacity of the OLT adapter. So we could send OMCI and PASCOM signaling to complete the ONU activation. And we also work on the OpenFlow integration with our ONOS controller. So the flows, or let's say the connectivity that we enable using the OLT adapter is based on the flows that VOLTHA is getting from ONOS. That comes from the back end of our platform. Okay. In addition to that, we also built a generic adapter for Telefonica HEU, home gateway unit. We could say it's the Telefonica ONU. Okay. So we have built a basic adapter that allows us to activate and create connectivity for our customers in the trial that are going to use ONUs for both vendors. We have submitted two different adapters, but this is just because of we couldn't manage to make the same code to be assigned to two different vendors. But the code for both ONUs are exactly the same. Okay. And this ONUs adapter essentially is managing the OMCI PASCOM signaling required for activating the ONU, for creation of the data path, and also for setting the uplink and downlink quality of service, essentially the granted and the exceeded bandwidth that is provided to the user. Okay. And additionally, this path creation is controlled by OpenFlow, as we said before, and what we are doing is taking the flows from ONOS, and from that we trigger the creation or removal of the associated GPON ports in the ONU. Okay. I don't know if you have any question or comment to this point. Okay. So in our trial scenario, what we essentially have. Whoa. I think because something was coupling. Okay. So correct. Okay. So as I was saying, in our trial, the basic architecture would be the one we have in this picture. So we have a set of ONUs from MitraStar and ASCII connected to a Microsemi physical unit, let's say, which is split into 12 different logical OLTs. These OLTs are connected to VOLTHA, and in VOLTHA, using the adapter we are talking about, we expose these devices to our ONOS Volt application. Okay? This ONOS application is responsible for basically creating or disabling the flow that lets the traffic from the user goes through the OLT on ONT or not. Okay. One of the things that we had to put some work on is we have done intensive testing on using several devices in parallel with usage from real customers, and also the scenarios when the users are plugging or disconnecting their ONUs from the network. And well, for that, we are pretty sure that the code that we are working that we have working at this moment is reliable, and at least the units we have in our testbed, I mean, keep working perfectly with no interruption. Okay. So with this in mind, I would like just to go through the main components of the contribution that we sent to you. And again, part of this contribution is based on what we already got done from Ali. So essentially, as you can see in this picture, I mean, we have on the left we have the micro semi OLT adapter, which is the adapter itself for the OLT that is interacting with OLT state machine, which is a SCAPI automaton that was provided by Ali, and this state machine is handling the basic OLT activation. Okay. Once this OLT state machine and micro semi OLT basically is implementing the PASCOM signaling required to get the OLT up and running. Okay. And also this micro semi is responsible for handling the ONT activation and alarms. Okay. Additionally to the adapter, we have the activation watcher, which is also an SCAPI automaton that is created once the OLT is ready, and this entity is responsible for handling the activation of ONUs. Okay, so on top of that activation watcher, ONU adapters are instantiated according to the vendor of the ONU. Okay, currently, as I said, we are using adapters for ASCII and MitraStar, which are the both ONU adapters that we are including in the contribution. Okay, and these ONU adapters are split in the adapter itself and a handler. Let's say that the ONU handler is the instance we are creating to handle a specific ONU instance from the user. So for every ONU that is connected, we have an ONU handler running and handling the signaling. Okay. One thing we have to say is that for the ONU activation, all the OMCI messaging and the PASCOM messaging that is required to be sent is sent from the ONU handler through the PASCOM proxy that we have also in this picture, which again is an SCAPI automaton. Okay. Well, one of the things additionally to these comments is, as you do see in this adapter, we are using intensively SCAPI and the automaton concept. One of the things that we found during our test is that using this automaton from SCAPI, a lot of file descriptors at the operating system level were left open, and we needed to go to the SCAPI library itself and create an simplified automaton class in order to keep this file descriptors open problem under control. We essentially have added some logic and removed some references to avoid these file descriptors to remain open. So currently we have had 5 devices simultaneously working and activating and deactivating, and there is no the file descriptors remain constant in the platform. So just to mention that if we want to make this adapter stable, we need to patch up a little bit this SCAPI library. Okay. So this is, as I mentioned before, we needed to do these kind of shortcuts because we had the need to have the environment ready and to be reliable to keep again customers on it. So well, that's why we had to do these kind of patches for the SCAPI, and also as you saw in the contribution, we needed to touch a little bit some of the core files from VOLTHA. Okay. Well, so this is these are the basic components we have, and in the following slide, we have included also which is the flow we are handling for the OpenFlow activation and deactivation of the flows. Essentially, what we are doing is getting all the flows update from OpenFlow agent through the microsemi adapter, and microsemi adapter is dispatching this update to the ONUs that are connected through microsemi. Okay, so essentially the microsemi OLT adapter is keeping track of all the ONUs adapter that are instantiated to manage ONUs from users, and when we receive an update from microsemi OLT, it is forwarded to every ONU adapter instance. Okay, and then with that update, the ONU handler, using the PASCOM proxy we mentioned before, it implements the sequence of PASCOM and OMCI messages that is needed to create the data path in the ONU and the OLT. Okay, I have to say that since we did the contribution by the end of last year, we have worked on migrating to 1.2 version, and by migrating I mean testing that the software keeps working using the rest of the VOLTHA software from the 1.2 baseline. Okay, and additionally to that, we have added the capability to set the upstream and downstream limits for per ONU from the user. Okay, that is not included in the. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
May I ask a question right now, or do you want me to wait till the end?
No, please.
Okay. I was just wondering. Sorry. Okay. So I was just wondering why the flow decomposition part is inside the adapter, inside the microsemi OLT adapter, and not in the core. It looks like the microsemi OLT adapter is the one that keeps track of the ONU adapters, which means if we were to move to a different if different OLT, then we'd have to do the exact same thing in the OLT adapter. Isn't this flow decomposition part typically done in the VOLTHA core today for all the other adapters?
Well, probably. I don't know if we could have found another way of handling this, but with the status of the code that we took as reference, it was the more safe approach we could took at that moment. Okay, and that's also the reason I mentioned before that I would like, or we would appreciate from you if once we presented this how this adapter is working, how we should enhance it to adapt to the architecture or the design guidelines you are using for these elements. Okay. At that point in time, the problem we tried to solve with this is we couldn't manage to make the OpenFlow information to reach the ONU instance of the user. So we have to decide if we let the OpenFlow to reach all the ONU adapters on that device, or let the OLT adapter from Microsemi to send the OpenFlow just to the ONU that is interested on it. Okay, and we decided to put that logic on Microsemi OLT adapter. But again, if we can rely on any in other capability from VOLTHA components, we are more than open to change that. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, you answered my question. Thanks.
Daniel, it's Manuel here. May I have another question just as a short follow-up to this one?
Mm-hmm.
So did I get it right then? The adapter would actually be more of a proxy, and the decomposition would happen there, but then the ONU adapter itself would handle the flow, would handle the flow management and itself represent the logical switch. Is that right?
Yeah. As we mentioned when we started doing our test, we got some problems with the VOLTHA components handling the OpenFlow, the flows from OpenFlow that we were using, which we spent some time trying to solve that, but we couldn't. So we decided that the easiest approach for us would be letting the OpenFlow information to flow to the ONU adapter, and just the ONU adapter processing and interpreting it. So what we are doing, one of the things that we were going to comment in the next slide is one of the components of the core elements that we have modified is the logical, I think it's, sorry, the logical device agent. And we really needed to comment there all the logic that is processing flows and groups, because it was causing some troubles to us. So essentially, I think that commenting code there, what we have made is that the flows are progressing unprocessed, and that let us forward that information till the ONU adapter. We are more than open to share with you all the problems that we have and why we implemented this shortcut. Okay, but for sure, probably there are easiest, more elegant approach to solve this. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Well, I think that was essentially. As you can see from the picture, there is an intensive use of SCAPI automaton in the implementation of the flows because of the complexity of the state machines. Well, again, maybe there are some parts of the implementation that could be done without relying on SCAPI automaton. So this is something that we could rethink about for the final version of the adapter itself. Okay. And as I was mentioning before, in addition to the code that we provided, as I mentioned, we had to modify 3 files from the VOLTHA core in our testbed. First one is the logical device agent, as I mentioned before. We commented the code that is processing flows and groups. And flow decomposer, we added an extra method to process the meter parameter for the flow. This is because in order to implement the upstream and downstream bandwidth limitation in the OLT, we are using meter for the controller to let the OLT, from the controller to VOLTHA to transfer, which is the expected bandwidth to be provided for the user. So we added a method to be able to extract the meter parameter from the flows. And additionally, in the adapter agent, we included an extra method to invoke an explicit update of a specific child device from the root device. We added some method there because we were getting some problems when we updated the status information of the ports of the logical device that were apparently not being reflected on ONOS. So we created a parallel method that worked for us to make that updates to be propagated immediately to the ONOS controller. Okay, and that's essentially the work we did. Again, it's code that was created to make the testbed operative, and now what we would like to do is to complete this and turn it into a, let's say, official and elegant adapter in the VOLTHA release. Okay, so it would be great for us to understand what things we did not properly in the architecture of this kind of adapter, and additionally any extra requirement from the community to make this official contribution, and that could be approved. Okay. So I don't know if you have any further comment or question.
I have a quick question, just a high-level question. So it seems that you guys essentially forked VOLTHA at some point, and I'm not sure exactly. You mentioned that I think you mentioned that you synced up with version 1.2. So I'm curious to learn more about how close you think your source code is to the master branch, and I assume you proposed to upstream all of these changes into the master branch at some point so that you don't have a fork?
Okay, yeah, it's, I mean, currently we are working on we have, let's say, synced with the 1.2 version, and we are more than open to sync with the master version, but we would need some support there to understand which could be the things we would need to take into account because of things that haven't been improved, and to cross-check that the design we have followed is properly working. I think that just using it with the master version, just from the experience of moving to 1.2, seems to be very easy, because as you can see in the code, we have put all the code in single methods that are basically implementing the full activation, the full data path creation, etc. So as I've seen, for example, in the 1.2 version, I see that an adapter currently has different methods to handle separately the creation of a gen port or activation of a gen port, etc. We don't have.
I'm sorry. Where is the code? I haven't been able to find it.
We did I mean, we committed it, and what we can do is to give you the branch. I mean, the branch, yeah, the branch we use it to comment that. It was by the end of last year, but again, as we've said, as we have said, we have changed it a little bit from the last days. So if it's okay, we can do an updated branch on the 1.2 and articulated it again.
Okay, yeah, I just haven't seen a branch anywhere in VOLTHA that would indicate where this code lives. I've heard some. Kim, do you know? Have you seen it? Do you know how to look at the code?
It's the Garrett review is number 7722. If you want to find it quickly.
Okay.
Now. And then there was a couple other previous ones that were abandoned. 7719, I believe. It's just right around those numbers.
Okay, you said 7712 or
7722. Yes.
Yeah, but where? I mean, is there a branch created where you can actually pull down this branch of code where this has been checked in anywhere, or is it just a Garrett review only? It hasn't actually been put upstream yet.
It's a review only, right?
Gotcha.
So you can pull. Gotcha. You can pull the patch if you want to.
Yep. Gotcha. Okay.
So again, we didn't want to cause extra noise with the upgrades we did. So I mean, what would be the best way to proceed? To publish the latest version of the code we are using and start working on it to make it acceptable. Should I do an extra commit, a new branch? How would you prefer to proceed?
It seems like it would go into master, but I mean, there's going to need to be a lot of testing by a lot of people who are regular community members. Don't you guys agree?
So you said,
yeah, particularly when you talk about that you've modified the core, and again, I don't know all the reasons why you did that, and I'm not saying they're not valid, and they don't need to be made, but those changes affect all the other adapters too, and that means I think that means a lot of testing has to be done, and I think if we can highlight those changes in the core a little bit more and get people to look at those, to see if those need to be upstreamed, or as you say, maybe the adapter needs to change. Those are going to be some of the key things to getting this onto master and upgraded. Doing it as a draft or a patch review, I think that's fine. I mean, essentially that becomes a branch in Garrett. It doesn't really make much difference how it's captured in Garrett. But the patch is going to have to be essentially rebased against master.
Yeah.
Okay, so you prefer to be a branch from master, right?
Well,
no, you don't need a branch. What I'm suggesting is you have to rebase your patch against the master branch. So essentially, we'll rewind your patch back to where you started, upgrade the master, pull in the master branch, and then try to reapply your changes. At that point, it is the manual operation of trying to find all the places where there's conflicts and patching those conflicts. Depending on how the changes are, that could go really easily, or it could be really difficult.
Well, I mean, you mean about the changes we do to the core files, right? I mean, for that, we do not expect. I mean, what we like to do is to solve the problems we are getting, and do not need any changes on the core files. So just focus on the adapter. So,
yeah, I think if you can describe those problems maybe on the discuss list about why you changed the core, and then maybe people, we can give some advice on that, and it might be that, again, the changes you made in the core are perfectly reasonable and they need to be upstreamed, or it might be, if you do this, you can get around it. But if you can kind of describe the problems you were having and why you had to do that on the email list, I think that might be helpful.
Perfect. So, well, we will proceed in that way. We will send to the discuss list we will create specific threads for the 2 or 3 questions we have open, and in parallel, that would be very interesting for us to get any comment from the architecture of the component. If that should be changed in any direction that you consider reasonable. Okay. So I mean, if you had the opportunity to go on the code that we already provided, that's I mean, regarding which is the architecture of the component, we haven't changed that much. It's essentially the same. We just have added some extra code there. So I mean, feedback from okay. Okay. You have any further question, comment?
One quick thought, I guess, and I don't know if I speak on behalf of everyone or not, but I think going forward, it would be preferable for you guys to be perhaps more integral into the development community, because VOLTHA is heavily under development right now. It's not really a mature product. And so the more integrated you are into the weekly discussions with the smaller check-ins, it probably makes things easier on everyone, especially for changes that might impact others.
For sure, and that's we really want to do. So please highlight which should the first steps we should take, please. I mean, at least knowing the events we should participate on in the fall in the community.
Yep.
We would appreciate.
Sure. So we do have calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Tuesdays are an hour later than the start time that today was, and then Thursdays may be moving to this new start time, but right now we're still starting an hour later. So we've got 2 meetings a week with the technical community. And then the Tuesday calls are mainly focused on status updates on the sprint and making progress on the sprints in progress, sprint that is active at that time. And then the Thursday calls right now are focused primarily on deep dive architecture discussions, and then the discussions like we're having today.
Okay, perfect. So we will into that course. Difficulties we had in this process because I mean in part we had on this VOLTHA element. We had a hard time the how things work and how things are done. So there's no inconvenient threads in the discuss mail group to get that clarified before going into deeper changes. Is that the best way to proceed, or we are going to cause too much noise in the discussion list?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I would just reiterate what David Bainbridge said, that starting from VOLTHA Discuss would be a good way to first see if your changes could be implemented with more within the adapters and with less changes to the core, and then then try to make a technical case for why core changes need to be made. And so take it from that approach, as opposed to just trying to go immediately get a bunch of reviews checked in for core changes, since some of this is just done without, outside of the core group.
Yes, we have some architectural questions. I mean, that we have somehow detected.
You're breaking up a lot.
Validate that it is. Okay.
Could you repeat
so we will
that?
start.
The audio broke
we will start.
They thought you were talking to them when you were talking to Alfonso.
Daniel,
sorry.
your audio. Yeah.
No, Alfonso was asking if we had a kind of list of questions. Yes, we have some key questions in mind that we couldn't manage to solve just checking the code on the Git. So we will post them on, one by one as we progress, and we will post them on the discuss list if it's not too much inconvenience for you. Okay?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. That's a good approach. Start by asking technical questions of the key architects in VOLTHA of what you couldn't solve, and then try to get answers, because David and Kim and some of the others can then advise you, or maybe you come up with something like David said that's something new that hasn't been solved and may require changes. So I think that's a good approach to start with.
We will do that. We will do that. And just somehow to as final idea from this presentation, again, apart from the shortcuts we needed to take in this process, we have currently the platform working. We have the VOLTHA instance running from the commit I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, and it is currently supporting the micro-semi OLT with several ONUs connected to it. And at least for the dimensions of the trial we are going to run, we are happy with the result, and our intention now is to make it something that we could somehow industrialize and publish in the community. So we would thank a lot for your support. Any further question?
Just a comment from my side, if I may. It's Manuel again. First of all, thanks very much for this presentation and the introduction to your contribution, and also I think at least from our perspective, so that's really appreciated that you contribute, and so I'm looking forward to that discussion and improvement and resolution of the code offered. And so thinking a bit about the larger context, so not just sort of the adapter and low level issues we've thought about. So did you also think about or work on the ONOS applications? So were there any other changes that were not, maybe related to the core VOLTHA and the micro-semi adapter and ONUs, but any other changes that you have also seen or that you're planning to make going forward?
Manuel, this is Alfonso. Yes, we had to, this is integrated with our ONOS solution. So it is paired with it, and we're further exploring more improvements on the ONOS layer on one of the applications to make sure that we can do multicast, do more end-to-end transfer of data without having to go through the servers and all this kind of work. So it's very close coupled with the work we do with ONOS, and we keep an application we call VOLT that help us do some of the management that goes, the commands that go right to VOLTHA, so it transfers them over to the OLT and the OLT to the ONT. Yeah, it's not an integrated solution, but it's closely coupled.
Yeah, as I think it was mentioned at the beginning of the call by David. What we are using is a kind of cord pod, but we are not using the canonical or official components. But in order for us to get deeper learning and understanding of how things work, we start building the basics capabilities of every component on our own with the requirements that we had in mind for the use cases that we identified. So we are using our own, we are not using, OpenStack for the virtualization. We are using OpenNebula. We are not using Trellis for the underlay. We are using a single ONOS application that is combining the underlay and the overlay to create the connectivities that we just need for the use cases we have in mind. We have our own Bolt application for controlling the OLT that we are doing. As Alfonso also has said, we are working on that applications, and it is something we need to think about internally. There is a point in time we should switch and start using the official core applications for ONOS, or keep evolving the ones we have already built. Again, we started building our own ones because we wanted to play with the technology and to understand the implications of everything that we were doing. And as we are evolving it according to the requirements of the trials and the use cases we are handling, we would decide that if we switch to the main core artificial versions. Okay.
And this is Sean. Sorry, this is Sean. Sorry, I stepped away for another call. Also, did you guys use the VOLTHA HA clustering in your environment right now, or it's just single instance of the VOLTHA?
For VOLTHA, we are not using cluster yet. Only for ONOS.
Okay.
We are having some troubles with the ONOS cluster, and we had a pending issue we would need to post, because we're having some troubles with the stability of the cluster, but we haven't taken that step on the VOLTHA component.
Okay. Manuel, I think we have been talking about, some of the discussion we try to review, at least collect a lot of use cases from various different operators, right? So the thing is, I think, yeah, Manuel and I, we've been doing this, looking at, how exactly the traffic management and QoS assignment, like the PB mapping to the queue, to the TCONs, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, Manuel, whether you have reached out to Alfonso and Daniel here regarding to maybe further discussion regarding to the use cases. It definitely will be very interested to know exactly, like for example, you have your own RG or what ONUs, and what level of the author authentication. What method are you using? PPPoE or using Radius, things like that. So potentially, I think we do want to reach back out, because those mechanisms will affect. I think some of the ONOS app will need to be able to support those. So I definitely would like to have an opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit further regarding to the QoS and TM. The traffic management, and also plus the some of the ONOS app with you have in mind trying to introduce to support your services. So I look at this as an initial meeting between the VOLTA and the Telefonica. So I'm looking for more further discussion for the coming years. So that's the comment I have. So I think okay. So I appreciate your presentation. Do any other people has any question or comment would like to make?
Yeah, I'm Wenhui from China Mobile, and I have a question about the functionality of configuration and the management for OLT or ONU. I just wondering, we have talked to some vendors such as Huawei, Nokia, or ZTE, and discuss the virtualization of the OLT. There is a debate that which functionality will move to VOLTA HA, or which functionalities remain in the legacy OLT hardware. So the colleague from I'm sorry to forget how. Let's maybe Afonso. Maybe yeah, Afonso. You mentioned that Telefonica will have a field trial of the OLT field trial. So have you taken into account these aspects I just mentioned?
Yeah, what we're trying to do is or to move most of the functionality and the functionality handling to software. We leave very little functionality in the hardware, as little as we leave the handling of the GPON feature and the OMSI characterization or commands, but all the logic for setting up the QoS, Q&Q, the management and all that, we leave it to the software. So what we want to do is out of the hardware. The developments we're making, that everything is logic driven and very little is going to be hardware driven. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. I think the VOLTA HA architecture should support the flexibility to the change which functionality will move up or still left at the hardware.
Okay, well, I think when she is that what the
Wenhui in Chinese pronunciation.
Oh, Wenhui. Okay, yeah. I think that's a more generic discussion we need to have. And first of all, I see you and other colleague of yours are attending this call. Welcome to the VOLTA TSD. You're from China Mobile, right?
Thank you.
So welcome to this call. Yeah, and what I would do is, I think that those discussion probably more in general VOLTA functionality support regarding to the hardware functionality. So I think maybe we can the direction VOLTA is taking. I think Alfonso mentioned very correctly is we want to make sure the hardware, a lot of functionality will be in software oriented. So the hardware side probably, how am I going to say it? So anyway, it's too early for me to talk. Yeah, I think that's something we should maybe talk offline based on the, I think that's most likely as a VOLTA architecture and what VOLTA needs to support. And so a lot of physical the hardware abstraction function it's very minimal. So a lot of function will be, we are moving into the software side, so on the northbound. So I think we should have a further meeting with other service providers so we can exchange ideas on this aspect. So sorry, Alfonso, if you want to answer that question, please go ahead. But I think that's
good. Yeah, okay, I agree with you. Yeah, we should. I think it's a very important issue for the VOLTA HA architecture. Yeah, thank you.
Right. And I think I do think different hardware vendor has different opinion regarding to what need to be resided on the hardware and what need to be resided on the EMS. And so right now I think our goal is we're going to remove make the VOLTA become EMS agnostic and also the hardware agnostic. So I think that's the basic fundamental principle for the development of the VOLTA. And I think as a service provider, like as big as China Mobile, I think you want to reduce your cost as much as you can. And we think VOLTA will achieve that goal. But it definitely do make the upper layer of the software a little bit more complicated. So I would like to looking forward to further discussion with China Mobile, and welcome to the TST. Julie, again, thanks for the Telefonica for this presentation. Julie, I'll give the floor back to you.
Okay, I think that pretty much wraps it up today if there are no other questions for Telefonica. So again, thank you for the presentation. And it sounds like we'll have some follow-up discussion on the email list on VOLTA Discuss. And then also, Daniel, if you need the details for the VOLTA TST meetings, please let me know. I can make sure you get that info and pass that along to you. And any last comments from the group?
My last comment. So for the friends from China Mobile, if you can contact us, so we can the VOLTA. So I'm typing my Gmail email here. Okay. So if you want to have that got sent to Manuel.
Okay. May I suggest you send I prefer the address not from Gmail because maybe it's some difficult for us to receive the mail from Gmail or send to it.
Okay. Yeah. So I type in my AT&T. This is
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, my AT&T's account. So
yeah, I have received it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm looking forward to have further discussion with on this forum. Thank you very much. So let's conclude this call. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I will stop the recording. Thank you, everyone, and we'll have our usual Tuesday call and a reminder to folks that the current sprint is targeted to close at the end of day tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks to